Hi guys, welcome back to Chess the Matthew. So on this video, we will tackle about how to beat the Sicilian defense with the Alapin's variation for white. So the set opening start with the move of e4 and c5. So this is the Sicilian defense, and here we will play c3 for white to have some antidote for this aggressive defense sa black. And if the black here plays knight f6, attacking this undefended pawn of white, but here we will just simply play bishop to d3, defending this pawn on e4. And if the black here tries to pressure it up with another attack with d5 push, having two attacker versus one defender to this pawn, but we have a simple move here which allows here for the black to respond with an accurate defense, because after e5 we shall see in this position now that the white here has a lot of possible moves, whether he can play the move e4 or knight to g4 with the support of his bishop, knight to e7, or even knight g8. But here this knight to h5 is actually not recommended because there is a queen on d1. So here, for example, if the black plays knight fd7, but we have a simple move here for white, which is the move e6, attacking the knight again. And if the black here capture that pawn, but we have queen h5 check, and the only defense against this check is to cover. And after g6, but we have a sacrifice move here after queen takes g5 check. And after h takes to g6, we have bishop takes g6 checkmate, because the king cannot actually escape the check or even to cover and capture these checking pieces. So in just 8 moves, we win here against the Sicilian defense with the c3 variation or the Alapin's variation for white. So again, for example, after e4, c5, c3, knight f6, bishop to d3, d5, e5. Let's say, for example, if the white here plays knight to e4, escaping to the attack of this pawn, and again this knight is actually defended with the d5, so any capture to this knight will leads to just an equality. So for example, after knight to e4 for the black here, but there is bishop b5 here for white, giving a check, because for example after bishop d7 there is a simple bishop takes d7 check, and after knight takes d7, d3, and we shall see in this position now that the knight of black here is actually been trapped. Although he can try a desperado move after knight takes f2, but there is simple king takes f2, and after knight takes to e5 and knight f3, we shall see in this position now that the white here actually wins a pawn, but still this piece in the opening is still stronger than these 3 pawns. So another try for the black here, for example after e4, c5, c3, knight f6, bishop d3, d5, e5. The black here can try another move with knight to g4, with an idea that this knight is actually defended by this bishop, but still there is simple bishop b5 check. The idea here is, for example, after bishop d7, there is bishop takes d7, and after queen takes d7, d4, defending first our pawn on e5, and after knight c6, developing a piece, but after h3, attacking the knight retreats to h6, but again the white here has a slight advantage after knight f3, because this knight here is actually misplaced on this position. So another thing, for example after e4, c5, c3, knight f6, bishop d3, d5, e5. Last try here for black is to play the move knight to g8, retreating his knight on his original square, but actually it is just a losing tempo, because for example after bishop to c2, retreating, and with a threat to play d4 later on, but for example after d4, knight f3, d3, attacking this bishop, and again trying have some more space on the center, but still there is a simple bishop a4 check. The idea here, for example after knight c6 and bishop takes c6, b takes c6, there is simple queen to a4, and we shall see in this position now that the white here is actually ahead of development with a threat to capture this pawn, and again this knight is actually doing nothing on this position. And finally, for example after e4, c5, c3, knight f6, bishop to d3, d5, and e5, again the retreat on knight fd7 actually doesn't have any harm on this position, because after e6, the black here should not capture that pawn, but instead to bring his knight back to knight f6 to defend his position with a control on the center, and this h5 and g4. So after bishop b5 check, knight c6, e takes f7 check, king takes f7, and knight f3, The black here can actually go for his rapid development with bishop to g4, but after bishop takes c6, the black here should not actually recapture this bishop with a pawn. Because for example, after b takes c6, there is a simple move that actually gives a fork after knight to e4 with a check and attack to the bishop on g4, which only has one defender on this point. And for example, after king g8, knight takes g4, knight takes g4, and queen takes g4, we shall see on this position now that the white here actually is a piece up. So after knight f6 on this position, bishop b5 check, knight c6, e takes f7 with a check, and after king takes f7, knight f3, and bishop g4, bishop takes c6, and here on this position, the black here should play bishop takes f3 first, rather than a losing move of b takes c6, because after bishop takes f3 and queen takes f3, here comes now the b takes c6 for black, and again after kingside castling with the move of e6 for black, it leads here to a radical equality. For example, with the idea to have a manual castling after playing bishop to c6, rook to f8, and king to g8. So just a recap, for example, after e4, c5, c3, knight f6, bishop d3, d5, and after e5, knight fd7, e6, f takes e6, queen h5, g6, and a sacrifice move of queen here for black that leads a checkmate after h takes g6 and bishop takes g6 checkmate. The white here wins in just 8 moves against the Sicilian defense with the Alapin's variation. So that's all. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to subscribe.